Greg, this is the last time you'll open our home to strangers without asking me. I dropped my bag on the kitchen counter, eyes blazing at the scene before me. Come on, it's just Rob. He's like a brother. Greg looked up from his beer, a lazy grin plastered on his face. You know how my day was. I just wanted peace tonight. My tone wasn't just firm, it was a warning. Rob leaned back on the couch, clearly sensing the tension, but choosing to stay silent. He sipped on his beer, eyes flicking between Greg and me. It's not a big deal, Meredith. It's not like I threw a party, Greg chuckled. No, I said, crossing my arms, but it's the principle, respecting each other's space. Greg sighed, standing up and walking over to the fridge. He grabbed another beer, deliberately ignoring my feelings. My blood boiled hotter. This isn't the first time, Greg. I ran my hand through my hair, trying to control my anger. I was really looking forward to my show tonight. Greg popped open the beer, avoiding eye contact. You can still watch it. I looked at the clock, knowing the episode had already started. And how am I supposed to focus with you two laughing and chatting? Greg still didn't get it. Or maybe he didn't want to. Rob's here for one night. Chill out. Rob, sensing a storm brewing, finally spoke. Maybe I should leave. No, Rob, I said sharply, not taking my eyes off Greg. You're here now. Let's just get through it. Greg shrugged and took a lazy swig of his beer. See? No harm done. I seethed as I walked past them, heading to the bedroom. I couldn't deal with this again. It wasn't about Rob or anyone specific. It was about respect, something Greg seemed to lack when it came to our shared space. I closed the door behind me and sunk onto the bed. Turning on the TV, the familiar intro to my true crime show filled the room, but my mind was elsewhere. Greg's disregard wasn't new. This pattern had been going on for months. 10 minutes into the episode, Greg knocked on the door and entered before I could respond. Meredith, seriously? Let's not fight over this. I muted the TV, frustration boiling over. Greg, it's not about Rob. It's about you not taking my feelings seriously. Can't you see that? He gave a bad imitation of a remorseful look and sat down next to me. I guess I didn't think it was that big of a deal. You didn't think, I repeated, voice trembling not with sadness but with sheer anger. That's the whole problem. This is our home. You can't just invite people over without asking. Greg stayed silent. I continued, not letting him off the hook. I need you to understand how much this matters to me. He finally met my eyes, a flicker of realization but also resistance. All right, I get it. I'll ask next time. The way he said it, I wasn't convinced. It felt like a placation, a way to end the argument for now. Promise me, I demanded. Promise you'll respect our space. Yeah, he nodded, but the nonchalance in his eyes worried me. Sure. I watched him leave the room, the door closing with a quiet click. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing this issue was far from over. It was about more than just friends and unexpected visits. It was about respect, and that was something Greg seemed to have a hard time grasping. As the muted TV flickered shadows on the walls, I realized the real struggle had just begun. The next morning, I woke up early, the weight of yesterday still heavy on my mind. Greg was snoring lightly next to me, oblivious to the turmoil he had caused. I didn't want to start the day with more arguments, but I knew that we needed to have a real conversation about last night. I got dressed and went downstairs, choosing to wait for Greg to wake up. I busied myself with making coffee, the aroma filling the kitchen and providing some comfort. About an hour later, Greg finally stumbled into the kitchen, scratching his head and yawning. Morning, he mumbled. I didn't respond immediately, focusing instead on pouring coffee into 2 mugs. Finally, I turned to him. We need to talk. Greg looked at me with a hint of annoyance. About what? Rob's gone now. Can't we just let it go? No, Greg, we can't just let it go. I handed him a mug, my eyes hard. You keep inviting people over without asking me? Last night was just another example of you not respecting my space. He sighed dramatically. You're blowing this out of proportion, Meredith. Am I? I challenged, setting my mug down with a thud. Every time this happens, you brush it off like it's nothing. But it's not nothing to me. What do you want me to do? Start sending you calendar invites? Greg scoffed. I want you to think about me before making decisions that affect both of us. Is that too much to ask? Greg rolled his eyes. You know what your problem is? You're too rigid. You need to relax. Life isn't just about schedules and rules. I felt my fists clench. You're missing the point. This is about respect, Greg. Respect for our home and for each other. I'm not asking for much. He took a sip of his coffee, avoiding my eyes. I'll try to remember next time, all right? Can we drop it now? I didn't believe him. His dismissive tone told me all I needed to know. This isn't the first time this has happened, Greg. It's becoming a pattern, and it's not just about last night. There have been plenty of other times. I paused, expecting him to argue, but he stayed silent. Emboldened, I continued, every time you do this, it makes me feel like you don't care about my needs, like I'm invisible. Greg finally looked up, irritation clear on his face. Are you seriously going to make this into a big deal? It was one night, Meredith. I shook my head, tears of frustration welling up. That's exactly it. You always think it's just one night, one small thing, but those small things keep piling up. He set his mug down more forcefully than necessary. Fine, from now on, I'll ask. Happy? No, because I don't believe you mean it, I replied, voice trembling but firm. I need you to understand that this is serious. If you keep ignoring my feelings, this won't work. Greg stared at me, seemingly taken aback by my ultimatum. You're really serious, aren't you? Yes, Greg. I am. I turned away, needing to get some distance. Think about what I've said. As I walked out of the kitchen, I knew that this wasn't the end of our argument, but at least I had made it clear that things needed to change. I came home from work later that week, hoping for a quiet evening, but the sound of laughter hit me as soon as I opened the door. Greg was sitting in the living room with two of his friends, beers on the coffee table, the TV blaring. Hey, you're home, Greg said, barely looking up. I forced a smile, trying to hide my frustration. I see we have more guests. One of his friends, Kevin, nodded at me. Hey, Meredith. Greg said it was cool to come over. I gritted my teeth, shooting a look at Greg. Can I talk to you in the kitchen for a second? Greg sighed but followed me. Once we were out of earshot, I turned to him. What did we just talk about last week? He shrugged, clearly annoyed. What now? I asked you to inform me before inviting people over. You promised, Greg. I forgot. It's not a big deal, he said, crossing his arms defensively. It is a big deal to me, I said, my voice rising. You keep ignoring my feelings. It's like you don't even care. He rolled his eyes. You're overreacting, Meredith. We're just hanging out. No, I'm not overreacting. You keep doing this, and it's disrespectful. I need peace when I come home. Greg leaned against the counter, shaking his head. You're acting like a control freak. Lighten up. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. This isn't about control. It's about respect. This is our home. Both of us need a say. Whatever, he muttered, already walking back to his friends. I stood there, feeling the sting of his words. This wasn't going anywhere. I knew then that Greg had no intention of changing. The realization settled heavily in my chest. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while the muffled sounds of their laughter and chatter seeped through the walls. It was hopeless. Greg didn't care about my needs or the impact of his actions on our relationship. As the night dragged on, my resolve hardened. If he wouldn't respect our space, I would make sure to reclaim it myself. The following morning, Greg was already up and about, seemingly oblivious to the argument from the night before. I found him in the kitchen, scrolling through his phone. We need to talk, I said, stepping in. Again? Greg sighed, not even looking up. Yes, again. Because things haven't changed. You keep dismissing me, Greg, and it's not okay. He finally looked up, irritation evident. What do you want from me, Meredith? I said I'd try to remember. Can you just drop it? No, I can't just drop it. If you can't respect this one simple request, what else won't you respect? Greg threw his hands up. Fine. You want respect? Respect works both ways. Stop nagging me about every little thing. I took a step back, hurt by his outburst. I'm not nagging. I'm asking for basic consideration. Greg scoffed. You know what? Maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe that's the problem. I felt a lump in my throat, but pushed it down. Maybe, but that doesn't excuse your behavior. He stared at me, unyielding. I'll do better. This conversation is over. But as he stormed out, I knew it wasn't. This was far from over. Respect wasn't something you demanded. It was earned. And if Greg couldn't see that, then I needed to take steps to protect myself and my peace. There was no turning back now. Greg had shown his true colors, and it was time for me to act. The days moved forward in an uncomfortable truce. Greg seemed more irritable, his attitude flaring up without warning. I, on the other hand, sank deeper into planning. The next incident had to be handled decisively. One evening after work, I decided to put my foot down. "Greg, we need to talk," I said as he lounged on the couch, aimlessly flipping through channels. He huffed, but muted the TV. "What is it this time?" I sat down across from him, eyes unwavering. "No more uninvited guests without informing me first." Greg smirked, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Sure. I'll send out a notification next time," he joked. I leaned forward, seriousness radiating from me. "I mean it, Greg, this is non-negotiable. We are in this together. Respect my wishes or we will have a serious problem." He gave a nonchalant shrug. "Fine, no more surprises. Happy now? You promise?" I pressed. Yeah, I promise," he said, waving me off. The following week, the atmosphere felt lighter initially. Maybe, just maybe, he'd finally understood. But deep down, I remained skeptical. Friday came, and as soon as I walked through the door, the sound of loud music and laughter greeted me. My heart sank. "Greg!" I shouted over the noise. He sauntered over, a drink in his hand, smiling like he owned the place. "Hey, babe, welcome home. Great timing." I glared at him, fury building. "What is this, Greg? We talked about this." "It's just a small get-together," he said, as if it explained everything. Don't be such a buzzkill." "Small get-together? There are at least 10 people here. This isn't what we agreed on," I said, my voice trembling with anger. Greg took a sip of his drink, unbothered. "Relax, Meredith. It's the weekend. Just have a drink and join us." I shook my head, feeling the last straw break. "This is it, Greg. I can't take this anymore." He laughed, his tone mocking. Don't be dramatic. It's just a party." I turned on my heel and stormed out, heading straight to our bedroom. As the door shut behind me, I picked up my phone and called the divorce lawyer I had researched weeks before. It was time to take action. Over the next few days, I began to quietly prepare. I gathered documents, bank statements, anything that might be useful. I stayed out of Greg's way, avoiding unnecessary confrontation. But the tension was palpable. One evening, Greg confronted me. "You've been weirdly quiet lately. What's going on?" I looked at him dispassionately. "Just thinking about a lot of things." "Are you still upset about the party?" "Meredith, you really need to let it go." "I can't, Greg. It's not just the party. It's everything. This isn't working anymore." He frowned, confusion turning into anger. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I need respect, and you're clearly incapable of giving it. I'm done." Greg laughed, though it was hollow and uneasy. "You're bluffing." I faced him, resolute. "No, I'm not. I spoke to a lawyer." The color drained from his face. "A lawyer? Are you insane?" "No, just tired. Tired of not being heard, of not being respected. This isn't a game, Greg. It's my life, and I'm taking it back." Greg's expression turned dark. "You'll regret this, Meredith." But as I walked away, the only thing I felt was an overwhelming sense of clarity. There was no turning back. My next steps were firmly in place. Coming home one evening, I hoped for quiet. Instead, I walked into chaos. Music blared, voices echoed, the unmistakable signs of another party. My stomach clenched, anger rising. I pushed through the mess of shoes and coats littering the hallway. "Greg!" I called out. No response. I found him in the living room, surrounded by friends, drink in hand, the party in full swing. He looked up and saw me, a slow smirk spreading across his face. "Meredith, join us. Why don't you?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Greg, we need to talk. Now." Ignoring my tone, he laughed. "Everyone, meet the boss of the house," he said, clearly amused at his own joke. People glanced at me, some sympathetic, others just curious. I felt a mix of embarrassment and fury. "Greg, now." He shrugged, setting his drink down and following me into the kitchen. As soon as the door closed behind us, I turned to him, eyes blazing. "What is this? We talked about this. No more parties." He leaned against the counter, unbothered. "You're being dramatic. It's just a few friends." "No, Greg. This is disrespectful and you keep doing it." I could feel my hands shaking. Greg's expression turned cold. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's just one night." "One night?" I scoffed. "This is the 3rd time this month. I've had enough." "You need to chill, Meredith," he replied, dismissive. "Life can't be all rules and schedules." "I can't live like this, Greg. I've already spoken to a lawyer," I said, my voice firm. His face twisted in surprise, then anger. "A lawyer? For what? This?" "Yes, Greg, this," I said, gesturing around. "It's clear you don't care about my feelings. You promised to respect our home, and you broke that promise. He took a step closer, sneering. You're really going to throw away our marriage over a couple of parties? Yes, I am. Because it's not just the parties. It's the constant disrespect, the disregard for my feelings. I'm done. He looked at me, eyes narrowing. You think you can just walk away? Good luck, Meredith. You'll regret this. I didn't flinch. Maybe, but it can't be worse than this. Without another word, I walked past him, grabbed my phone, and went to the bedroom. My hands were shaking as I called the lawyer again, setting up a meeting to finalize the papers. I couldn't keep doing this. Later that night, after everyone left, Greg stumbled into the bedroom. So that's it? We're done? He slurred, clearly drunk. Yes, Greg. We're done, I said, not looking up from packing a small bag. I'm leaving tonight. He grabbed my arm, making me look at him. You won't survive without me. I pulled my arm free. Watch me. Leaving the house felt surreal, like stepping out of a nightmare. As I drove away, the weight on my chest started to lift. This was just the beginning, but it was my beginning. There was no going back. My next chapter started now. I woke up early, the sun barely breaking through the curtains. The divorce papers lay on the nightstand, staring at me like a challenge waiting to be met. Today was the day. I took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of resolve and anxiety. By the time Greg woke up and stumbled into the kitchen, I was ready. I placed the papers on the table, my heart pounding. Good morning, Greg groaned, not yet noticing the documents. Morning, I replied, my voice calm. We need to talk. He finally saw the papers and froze. What's this? Divorce papers, I said with finality. I'm serious, Greg. You need to sign them. His eyes widened with a mix of shock and anger. You're really doing this? Yes, I am, I said. You had every chance to change. I need respect and peace, and you can't give me that. He grabbed the papers and waved them at me. This is insane. You're throwing away everything over a few arguments? It's not just a few arguments, Greg. It's about trust, respect, all the things you seem to lack. He slapped the papers back on the table. You'll regret this, Meredith. You think you won, but you haven't. I held my ground, my voice steady. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about my peace and my future. He stared at me for a long moment before finally slumping into a chair. Fine. You want your precious respect? Here, he said, grabbing a pen and scrawling his signature angrily. Take it. A wave of relief washed over me, but I remained composed. Thank you. As he handed the papers back, his eyes darkened. Don't think for a second that this is over. You'll see. The threat hung in the air, but I didn't flinch. Goodbye, Greg, I said, turning away and heading out the door. The fresh air hitting my face felt liberating. The next few days flew by. I moved into a small, cozy apartment across town. It was a fresh start, a new beginning that I desperately needed. I dedicated myself to my work, pouring my energy into something constructive. My colleagues noticed the shift, offering support and encouragement. During a quiet evening, as I was organizing my thoughts, my phone rang. It was Dorothy, Greg's mother. Meredith, we need to talk, she said, her voice firm. Of course, Dorothy. What's going on? Come over to the house. We need to discuss this in person. I drove over, nervous but determined. Dorothy greeted me at the door, her expression serious. I heard about the divorce, she said as we sat down in the living room. Yes, it was a difficult decision, but necessary. She nodded, her gaze piercing. I need you to know something about Greg. His father. He had similar issues. I never intervened, thinking he would change, but he never did. I was stunned, but I listened intently. Greg has been irresponsible and manipulative, even with money. He's accrued debts in your name and drained the joint account. My stomach clenched. How could he do this? Dorothy sighed, eyes filled with regret. I thought he'd grow out of it. Apparently I was wrong. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal. What do I do now? Dorothy reached out, taking my hand. I stand with you on this. We need to set things right. I'll help in any way I can. Her support was a lifeline. Together, we devised a plan to confront Greg and hold him accountable. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life and ensuring such deceit wouldn't go unpunished. As I drove back to my apartment later that night, a sense of determination settled over me. Greg wasn't going to get away with this. The fight was far from over, but I wasn't alone anymore. I stood outside Greg's apartment, my heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and determination. Dorothy's words echoed in my mind, stealing my resolve. Today was the day I confronted Greg with the financial deceit he'd been hiding. I knocked firmly. A moment later, the door swung open. Greg, looking disheveled, stared at me in surprise. "Meredith? What the hell are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said, pushing past him and into the apartment. Dorothy followed, her presence a silent support. Greg closed the door, clearly annoyed. "What's this about?" "I found out about the debts, Greg. The ones you racked up in my name," I said bluntly, eyes locked on his. His face went pale, but then he laughed, a nervous, mocking sound. "Oh, come on. You're overreacting. They're just a few charges." Dorothy stepped forward, her expression stern. "Don't lie, Greg. We have the evidence." Greg's eyes flickered with anger. "So what? You're here to gang up on me? Make me the bad guy?" "You are the bad guy," I said, keeping my voice level. "You betrayed my trust, and now you need to own up to it." He sneered, crossing his arms. "And if I don't, then we'll take legal action." "Fraud is a serious crime, Greg," Dorothy said, her tone unyielding. Greg's defiance wavered. He looked between us, his bravado starting to crack. "Fine. What do you want?" "Repay every cent you took from the joint account. Clear all debts in my name," I demanded. "And I want it in writing," he scoffed. "You think I have that kind of money just lying around?" Dorothy stepped closer, eyes blazing. "Then sell your assets, figure it out. You created this mess, you will fix it." Greg's face contorted with frustration and fear. "You're ruining my life, Meredith." "No, Greg," I said quietly. "You ruined mine. I'm just taking it back." He glared at me, then at Dorothy. "You both can't do this." Dorothy's voice was calm but firm. "We already have. I've spoken to a lawyer too. If you don't comply, they'll take it from here." Greg's shoulders slumped. He looked defeated, a shadow of the man who had once thought he had all the power. "Fine. I'll do it. Anything to get you off my back." "Good," I said, relief washing over me. "I'll have the paperwork ready by the end of the week. Sign it, and we'll be done." We turned to leave, but Greg called out, "Meredith, wait." I paused, not looking back. "What is it, Greg?" "I'm sorry," he said, his voice softer, though still tinged with bitterness. I turned around, meeting his eyes. "Too late for that, Greg. Actions have consequences. I hope you learn from this." Dorothy and I walked out, the weight of confrontation lifting slightly. As we reached my car, she turned to me, her expression softening. "You did well in there." "Thanks to you," I said, gratitude filling my voice. "I couldn't have done it alone." She nodded. "Now focus on your future. Don't let him drag you down again." Driving away, I felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. The battle was far from over, but I had allies. Greg's manipulations had come to light, and I was taking control of my life. A sense of empowerment surged within me. This was just the beginning of my journey towards reclaiming my happiness. Moving out of Greg's shadow felt like stepping into the sunlight after years in the dark. I settled into my new apartment, finding comfort in the quiet simplicity of my own space. There were no more unexpected parties, no more shouting matches, just peace. One evening, as I was settling into my new home routine, my phone rang. It was my lawyer, Sarah. "Meredith, I have some good news," she said, her voice calm but decisive. "We've settled the financial issues with Greg. He's agreed to repay everything." A wave of relief washed over me. "Thank you, Sarah. This means so much." "Of course," she replied. "We'll make sure he complies with the agreement. Don't worry about a thing." Hanging up, a deep sense of completion settled over me. But I knew that Greg wouldn't make it easy. A few weeks later, I received a call from an unknown number. Picking up, I was greeted by Greg's voice, strained and desperate. "Meredith, please, can we talk?" he pleaded. "What is it, Greg?" I kept my tone flat, emotions in check. "I'm struggling. I don't know how to deal with all this, selling the house, repaying debts. It's too much," he said, voice cracking slightly. "That's the consequence of your actions, Greg. You brought this upon yourself," I replied, feeling a pang of pity but quickly pushing it aside. "Can we at least meet up, just to talk things over?" he asked, desperation clear in his tone. "No, Greg, we're done. The papers are signed, and the agreement is in place. I have nothing more to say to you," I said firmly. "You can't be this cold, Meredith. I need help," he tried again. "I helped you for too long, Greg. Now you have to help yourself," I said, hanging up before he could respond. I knew his plea was another attempt to manipulate me, to drag me back into his web of chaos, but I was beyond that now. My focus was on healing, rebuilding, and moving forward. Dorothy visited me a few days later, bringing over a housewarming gift. How's the new place? She asked, looking around. It's perfect. Peaceful, I said, smiling genuinely. I'm glad to hear that, she said, sighing. Greg called me too. He's struggling. I know, I replied. He called me asking for help. She shook her head. He needs to learn responsibility. This is the only way. I agree, I said. Thank you for your support, Dorothy. I couldn't have done this without you. She smiled, taking my hand. You're strong, Meredith. Don't ever doubt that. As days turned into weeks, Greg's situation worsened. Forced to sell assets to pay back the debts, his life of reckless abandon came crashing down. I watched from a distance, detached, as he scrambled to pick up the pieces. In contrast, my life took a turn for the better. Work became my sanctuary, a place where I could channel my energy into something productive. My colleagues noticed the change, often complimenting my renewed focus and determination. One day, Sarah called again with the final update. Greg has completed the payments. Everything's settled now. Thank you, Sarah, I said, feeling truly free for the first time in years. After the call, I took a moment to reflect. Greg was a chapter of my life that had closed. Now it was time to write new ones, filled with peace, respect, and self-love. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over my new apartment, I felt a profound sense of liberation. The darkness of the past was behind me, and the future was bright with possibilities. Greg might still reach out, but his calls would go unanswered. I had reclaimed my life, and it was mine to cherish.
One morning, as I was pregnant with my second child, labor pains began. My daughter worriedly looks at me as I sit down. Daddy, take mommy to the hospital. With a nonchalant expression, my husband ties his tie as our daughter cries out tearfully. Then my husband turns back and gives an annoyed look towards us.
That's impossible. I have a business trip now.
Huh? Ignoring my distress, my husband fetches a suitcase from his room and heads to the entrance. I'm having contractions and can't move.
Well, do your best, won't you?
At the moment the front door slammed shut before my eyes, I exploded. Leaving a wife in labor alone and going on a business trip? What is he thinking? I will never forgive him. A week later, my husband came home from his business trip and spoke to our daughter over the intercom.
Daddy's back. Is that baby brother cute?
He's not here anymore.
Huh?
After this, my foolish husband would experience hell. My name is Melanie Singer, and I'm 33 years old. I'm a working mother raising children. First, I want to talk about the events leading up to this. In my parents' house, the Singer family, there's my 62-year-old father and my brother, who is 4 years older than me. My mother passed away when I was in elementary school due to illness. I still remember my gentle and frail mother. My father and brother did their best to support and raise me, while I mourned the loss of my mother. My father is a high school physical education teacher and a judo practitioner. My brother, who was trained by my father from a young age, is also a judo expert. Both of them have a sturdy physique and might have seemed intimidating to outsiders. However, they are kind people who poured their love into me and did their best to raise me. I could never thank my father and brother enough. After graduating from college, I became an ordinary office worker. In my late 20s, a senior colleague organized a blind date for me, knowing that I didn't have a boyfriend. There, I met Jonathan Spencer, who would later become my husband. Jonathan works as a sales manager in a different company and is said to be excellent at his job. After 2 years of dating, he proposed to me, and we happily became engaged. Next, it was time to visit my family and formally announce our engagement. Since I had been raised so protectively by my father and brother, I wondered what I would do if they were to say our daughter won't do it. I had thought about it, but then my father, with tears in his eyes, told me,
I can't believe Melanie's getting married. Mom in heaven must be so happy. You deserve to be happy.
My brother also said with an extremely excited expression,
Congratulations on your marriage. Please give my regards to Jonathan as well.
I remember feeling on the verge of tears, seeing my father and brother like that. Afterward, we went to Jonathan's parents' house to pay our respects. My in-laws were kind, sensible people, which was a relief. We were blessed by each other's families and officially registered our marriage. After that, we rented an apartment midway between our families and started living together. Jonathan helped a lot with household chores, so I was enjoying a happy newlywed life. Then, just 6 months into our marriage, my pregnancy was confirmed. Jonathan was overjoyed by this news too. As soon as I entered the stable period, I reported the pregnancy to both sets of in-laws and my father and brother. They were all extremely delighted, especially my father and brother.
I'm going to have a grandchild. There's nothing that makes me happier. Melanie, take care of yourself, okay? Oh, so I'm going to be an uncle? I'm looking forward to it.
My in-laws also showed care for my well-being, telling Jonathan, make sure to support her properly. Thanks to those words, Jonathan stepped up and supported me greatly, taking on tasks and responsibilities. Eventually, I gave birth to our first child, a daughter. Blessed by both families, I was at the peak of happiness. After that, Jonathan and I began raising our child. He couldn't take paternity leave, so I ended up taking the lead in childcare. However, it was much more challenging than I had imagined. Our daughter cried a lot at night and was quite demanding, making it very hands-on. When I hold her, she sleeps, but the moment I lay her down on the bed, she starts crying intensely. Because of this, I had to carry our daughter around constantly. Initially, Jonathan helped with childcare, but gradually, he started slacking off. Furthermore, when our daughter began crying at night, he started saying things like this.
It's so noisy. Hey, make Courtney stop crying already.
Night crying can't be helped. There's nothing I can do. While soothing Courtney, I replied like that, but he still seemed annoyed.
I have field work for my job again tomorrow. Let me get some sleep.
I haven't had a decent night's sleep for days either. Jonathan, can't you change things up a bit once in a while?
Huh? Why me? You're on childcare leave, and I'm working during the day.
But the kid is ours. Jonathan didn't listen to those words till the end. He just clicked his tongue and fell asleep in the living room. It's said in childcare magazines that even couples who have been close can become tense when faced with a significant challenge of childcare. However, during pregnancy, we were getting along just fine. I had convinced myself somewhere in my heart that it wouldn't affect us. Yet, I never imagined Jonathan and I would end up in such an awkward situation. While grappling with our relationship, I had no choice but to focus entirely on childcare right in front of me. Jonathan continued not to help much with childcare or household chores afterward, leaving me to handle most of it on my own. In addition, around the time Courtney turned 2 years old, Jonathan started being absent from home often, citing his busy work schedule. Nevertheless, I didn't say anything, thinking, he's working for the family. A while after Courtney turned 3, my second pregnancy was confirmed. When I informed Jonathan, his reaction was nonchalant. I felt a bit let down, but we received blessings from both families again. However, this time the burden was heavier. I experienced intense seasickness-like symptoms all day and couldn't even get up. When I explained the situation to my workplace, they suggested taking a break from work, which I gratefully accepted. Thus, I ended up staying at home, battling nausea every day. While managing to handle Courtney's childcare, I found myself increasingly unable to tackle household chores. On that day, I couldn't get up in the morning and lay down at home, unable to do anything. Then Jonathan, who came home late, called out to me.
Hey, what are you sleeping for? Where's my meal?
I managed to handle Courtney's portion, but I wasn't feeling well enough to prepare yours. I bought some frozen food. I'm sorry, but can we just use that?
Huh? You've been home all day and you're neglecting the chores.
Jonathan spat out these words with irritation. I tried to make him understand this difficulty, but he wouldn't listen. In fact, he said with a stern face,
Listen, pregnancy isn't an illness. Don't use it as an excuse to avoid work or chores. Make dinner now.
Before I could retort, nausea hit me, and I rushed into the bathroom. Despite that, Jonathan continued to throw sharp words at my back.
Don't think you can back out like that.
I don't intend to. It's really tough on my body. In the bathroom, as I struggled to respond, Courtney, looking concerned, gently stroked my back. Upon seeing this, Jonathan let out a deliberately loud sigh.
Just do what you're supposed to do. If there's no food next time, you won't hear the end of it.
In the end, I had to muster strength that day to make his meal. He was kind during the pregnancy with Courtney, so why did he change like this? Despite my confusion, I continued to live with Jonathan overworked. Instead of showing concern for me during pregnancy, my husband continued to demand perfect housework and childcare as before, even though he was often away from home. If my housework wasn't done to his liking, I would be lectured for a long time while sitting on the floor. That life became so unbearable that thoughts of divorce crossed my mind many times. However, thinking of my father, brother, and parents who were happy about the marriage, I couldn't talk to anyone about it. I was desperately enduring the thought of taking away the father from Courtney and our unborn child. As the due date approached, I asked Jonathan to stay home as much as possible. However, he continued to work overtime without listening. It was exactly 1 week before the due date. I started feeling abdominal pain in the middle of the night. I thought it was too early, but when I checked the intervals, contractions were coming every 20 minutes. It's finally happening. I have to go to the hospital. Soon, the night passed, and it became morning. I told Jonathan as he woke up, Jonathan, I think I'm having contractions. Could you? However, Jonathan completely ignored it. He passed by me and started getting ready. Then, the pain in my stomach became intense, and I sat down right there. As I groaned, Courtney ran over worried. Mom, are you okay? Is your tummy hurting? Courtney, the baby will be born soon, so Mom. I was about to say more, but then the pain hit me again. Dad, take Mom to the hospital! With a frustrated expression, Courtney yelled diagonally at Jonathan, who was calmly tying his tie. In response, Jonathan turned around and gave an annoyed look.
That's impossible. I have a business trip coming up.
Huh? I was speechless, and Jonathan, without a word, went to his room to get a suitcase and headed to the front door. "Can't you see? I'm in labor and can't move."
Well, do your best then.
The moment the front door slammed shut in front of me, I snapped. "Leaving your wife in labor right in front of you for a business trip? What is he thinking? I will never forgive him." But right now, I don't have the luxury to think about Jonathan. I sent a message to the WhatsApp group with my father and brother asking for help. 30 minutes later, my father and brother, who had changed their plans, arrived at the apartment. They desperately tried to comfort me as I wailed at the entrance.
"Hey, are you okay? Let's get in the car quickly. I will take you there."
My brother said so and lifted me up. Father, perplexed, held Courtney's hand as he followed.
"What on earth is Jonathan doing at a time like this?"
As we got into the car and the waves of pain subsided, I talked about Jonathan's whereabouts. Upon hearing this, my father and brother were resolute.
"Jonathan doing that? No. First we have to focus on your delivery. Don't worry. We are both here with you."
And so, we arrived at the hospital. By that time, the contractions were occurring every 5 minutes, and I was soon placed on the delivery table. Afterward, I gave birth to a baby boy. The midwife mentioned that if the progress had been any slower, it could have been quite problematic. While Courtney peered at her brother with curiosity, my father told me something.
"Melanie, I've been thinking a bit."
Upon hearing my father's words, I decided to go along with it. As it was my second child, I was discharged from the hospital 5 days later. Instead of going home, I went straight back to my parents' house. From the birth until then, I hadn't been able to contact Jonathan. About a week after the birth, as Courtney and I were working in our old house, the intercom at the entrance rang. It was Jonathan, who had come over. At my request, Courtney answered the intercom. "Dad?"
"Hey, Courtney. Dad is back. Is that baby brother cute?"
To which Courtney replied, "He's not here anymore."
"Huh?"
"That kid went far away." At that, my husband on the screen's face paled, as if it were amusing. After a while, we heard footsteps running down the apartment hallway. The door unlocked, and my husband came in.
"Hey, Melanie. What's going on? The baby is gone? Only Courtney and I are in the room. There are several cardboard boxes stacked behind us."
I tried to ignore him and get back to work, but Jonathan shouted again.
"Hey, where's our son?" "No way."
Seeing my husband's pale face, I trembling lips, I calmly informed him. "If you mean our son, he's at my parents' house."
"So, if he's not here, that's why you're not here."
Then, my husband seems to relax and sat down right there. I was a bit surprised that he still harbored such feelings.
"Oh, this is getting confusing. I was sure it was a nightmare. Hey, what is all these cardboard boxes?"
"Well, I'm moving back to my parents' house."
"What? What are you talking about? Saying such selfish things?"
Jonathan turns bright red and shouts,
"What's the meaning of going back to your parents' house and leaving your husband behind like this?"
Then, my father appeared from the back room.
"Oh, Dad?"
Jonathan harbors an inferiority complex towards my father, who is a judo expert. Seeing my well-built father, he shrinks back.
"What on earth are you doing?"
"Well, you see..."
"I tried to contact you somehow, so I contacted your company instead of my daughter. Then, they said you weren't on a business trip, but taking a day off, and at such a busy time it seems."
"Huh?"
Even colleagues I know were saying the same. They said your family members fell ill and had to be hospitalized. It was inconvenient because of the important meetings, but you had to take time off due to that. So who got hospitalized? Actually, it was my mom.
Jonathan was growing paler by the moment.
I contacted your mom just to check, and both your mom and dad are perfectly fine.
As Jonathan's eyes swam in my father's words, I sighed. It wasn't really a business trip or taking care of the family, was it? It was more like a cheating excursion, wasn't it?
Huh? There's no way that's true. What are you talking about?
At that point, I pulled out several photos. There were messages with another woman confirming the affair and explicit pictures.
What's this all about?
I looked into WhatsApp from your computer. So you've been exchanging messages using WhatsApp, huh? With a junior colleague from work? You're quite the player, even though you're married.
No, it's not like that with her. It's just a casual thing.
Before Jonathan could finish, my father executed a perfect clean shoulder throw on him. Thrown directly onto the floor, Jonathan groaned in pain.
I will let you off easy this time. But the pain my daughter endured is not something like this.
To my groaning husband, I presented the filled-out divorce papers. You and I are divorcing. Both kids' custody is mine. You will pay for the affair and our daughter's expenses properly. The rest, let this jerk fall into hell on his own. Ooh. Afterward, I packed up with my father, took Courtney's hand, and left the scene. Later, Jonathan and I divorced. I received a settlement of $30,000, and he agreed to pay monthly child support of $1,000. Of course, I also demanded compensation from his affair partner. Apparently, the two finally broke up after a dispute over the matter. By reporting the affair at work, had rumors about Jonathan spread, leading to the affair partner resigning voluntarily and Jonathan being demoted. Jonathan, rumored to be a despicable jerk at work, cannot quit his job due to child support, and is now living in hell working every day. He will not be able to get ahead in life. He will lose his family, and even if he works, most of it will disappear to child support. Jonathan leads such a life, and I have no sympathy for him. Instead, I consider it just retribution. On the other hand, we moved back to our parents' house and started a new life. Courtney, who originally had little attachment to her father, seems unaffected by our divorce. As it turns out, my brother is a muscular childcare worker, so handling Courtney goes smoothly, which honestly helps a lot. I want to continue cherishing my family, looking forward to my children's growth with love, and embracing life brightly.
Now, come on, Jasmine, sing. You, an illiterate middle school graduate with only a part-time job experience. Wow, I don't think you have a beautiful singing voice. My mother-in-law looked at me with a smirk and stared at me. Well, humiliation can help you get better sometimes, you know. I have a degree in music, and I am offering you a special opportunity to sing at this family gathering. I won't help you even if you cry. It's your fault that you were uneducated. How ugly you will sound in front of these guests. I can't wait. All eyes on me at once, including relatives I am not familiar. I feel myself choking up. I was nervous, but also very excited. I would be able to defeat my smirking mother-in-law with my favorite song. I took a deep breath. My name is Jasmine. I live with my husband Trevor, our 4-year-old daughter Ivy, and my mother-in-law. We've been married for 4 years. I have been working part-time at a cafe since I graduated from junior high school. Trevor was a regular customer at the cafe where I worked. We fell in love a short time after we got to know each other. After a few years of dating, Trevor and I were blessed with a new life together, and we decided to get married. I went to Trevor's parents' house to say hello. I am so happy to have a beautiful daughter. Thank you for marrying my son. Back then, my mother-in-law greeted me with such kindness. I was glad she's a kind mother. I was sure we were going to get along just fine. I was so happy and relieved. Soon after, I gave birth to my daughter. At the same time, we decided to move in with my in-laws. I was anxious about raising a child for the first time, with both parents working. I thought that we would be able to help each other with this kind mother. So I willingly agreed to live with her. But this was the beginning of my days in hell. Hey, Jasmine! If you are home, prepare dinner right away. What? This tastes disgusting. You are truly incapable of making a good income. That's why I hate middle school graduates. Ever since I moved in with my parents-in-law, my mother-in-law has changed drastically. My mother-in-law, who used to be kind to me, started to be hard on me as if she had changed. Because she didn't like me. A part-time worker with a middle school diploma. Trevor and I both work, and I come home every day just as tired as Trevor. But she orders me to make dinner, criticizes the taste of the food, and even complains about my salary. On weekends, my mother-in-law would often take Trevor and Ivy away from home while I was still asleep. I spent a lonely weekend by myself every time. Jasmine is tired from her daily chores, so let's let her sleep. Said so. She plays the caring mother-in-law. Seems like Trevor is completely fooled by her act. Hey, Mom is just being nice to you, you know. I don't think you should complain, Jasmine. You're a bit rude. I insisted to Trevor that I wanted to spend weekends with Ivy, but he wouldn't take me seriously. My mother-in-law is just trying to keep Ivy and me away from each other. As a mother, I was sad that my precious time with my beloved daughter was being taken away. As the month went by, Ivy, now 4 years old, asked me, Mommy, are you fighting with Grandma? What, honey? Why? Grandma said Mommy's being mean to her. Huh? I don't know what she's talking about. By this time, my mother-in-law had started to talk shit about me to Ivy. She is the one being mean to me. Oh, I remember. I think we had a bit of a fight the other day. I'm sorry, Ivy. I'll apologize to Grandma soon. So don't worry, okay? All I could do was say so. Then one day, Ivy was going to sing a song at the kindergarten recital. Since I'm a good singer, I promised to teach Ivy how to sing the following weekend. Yay! Mommy's going to teach me! I can't wait! My mother-in-law has been depriving me of my weekend time with Ivy for so long. This weekend, we could be together. I couldn't wait for the weekend to come. But on the morning of the long-awaited weekend, I saw the worst possible sight. Come here, Ivy. Grandma will teach you a song. My mother-in-law was about to take Ivy to her room. Hey, wait a minute, please. I promised Ivy that I would teach her to sing today. I hurried to stop her, but my mother-in-law turned around and said, What? How can you teach her to sing? You are only a junior high graduate and a part-time worker, right? Again, my mother-in-law made fun of my career. Well, singing has nothing to do with that, don't you think? I couldn't resist retorting. But my mother-in-law snickered and continued. I graduated from a famous music school. Don't you think I'm more qualified than you, who has no education? My mother-in-law looks down at me with her hand over her mouth as if she were a noblewoman. Maybe you're right. I think you were great. But Ivy was looking forward to singing with me today. In response to my desperate plea, my mother-in-law's words came out as a shock to me. But Jasmine, Ivy would rather have me than you know? Isn't that right, Ivy? When my mother-in-law asked her, my daughter, who had been silent until then, opened her mouth and said, Sorry, Mommy. I want Grandma to teach me today. I was so shocked that I couldn't find the words. Mommy, I'm sorry. I came back to myself at the sound of Ivy's anxious voice. Oh, it's okay, honey. Then have fun with Grandma, okay? Okay. I forced a smile to reassure Ivy. My mother-in-law closed the door, as if she was proud of her victory. The day of the recital, Ivy successfully sang a Twinkle Twinkle, a song my mother-in-law had taught her. You sang very well, Ivy. My mother-in-law was so proud of her. I, too, was proud of Ivy, but I felt a certain discomfort. Of course, it was my daughter's singing voice, so it was very lovely and wonderful. But I honestly felt that it was the same as usual, even though it was taught by someone who graduated from a music school. That was my honest impression. When I came home from the recital, my mother-in-law said to Ivy, Hey, Ivy, this Sunday, all of Grandma's friends and relatives are coming over. Why don't you let them hear you sing, just like the recital? Huh, you just want to show off in front of your friends and relatives, don't you? I thought to myself. But sweet Ivy doesn't know that, and answers innocently. Okay, I will sing for them. I'll be good. My mother-in-law smiles at my daughter with satisfaction. And then she said to me with a creepy smile, So, Jasmine, you heard that, right? Make sure you prepare the dishes for the guests. What a selfish woman. That night, I made a secret request to Ivy. The next Sunday, I woke up early and got busy with the preparation for the gathering. Trevor helped me too. My mother stayed in her room with Ivy because she had to practice for the last time. I am not the one who initiated this recital, and I am the one who has been so busy. Soon after, my mother-in-law's friends and relatives came to visit one after another. As soon as everyone was there, my mother-in-law started to show off Ivy's song and boast about her grandchild. Come on, Ivy, sing a song for everyone. When Ivy sang, the place was filled with applause. Isn't her voice beautiful? I taught her how to sing. Then, Ivy said to her grandma, who was bragging non-stop, Grandma, let's sing together. Well, let's sing together then. My mother-in-law looked a little puzzled, but she and Ivy started singing nursery rhymes together. That night, I had secretly asked Ivy for a favor. Hey, Ivy, Mommy wants to listen to Grandma's singings too. Can you ask Grandma to sing for me next Sunday? Sure. I want to listen to Grandma's singing too. I was genuinely curious about my mother-in-law's singing ability. she had graduated from a music college. But my mother-in-law taught Ivy how to sing, and her singing wasn't that good. I questioned my mother-in-law's singing ability itself. Sure enough, my mother-in-law's singing was not that good. For better or worse, she was just average. Well, I'm not used to singing nursery rhymes, so... A strange atmosphere filled the room. My mother-in-law's gaze wandered as she made excuses. And when she saw me, she grinned as if she had found her prey. How about you sing, Jasmine? What? Me? It hits me immediately. You are trying to cover up your inadequacy by humiliating me. Well, I don't think you have a beautiful singing voice. 'Cause you, an uneducated middle school graduate with only a part-time job experience, I have a degree in music, and I'm offering you a special opportunity to sing. You won't get another chance like this. You should be grateful. Well, I bet you will end up humiliating yourself though. I won't help you even if you cry. It's your fault. You are a middle school graduate. Now, let's see how ugly your singing could be in front of all these guests. I can't wait. My father-in-law talked fast in my ear. She forced me to stand in front of the guests. Now, come on, Jasmine. Sing. All of my mother-in-law's friends and relatives were looking at me at once. My mother-in-law, wanting to humiliate me in front of these people, looked at me with a smirk on her face. I took a deep breath and began to sing. The next moment, everyone in the room gasps for air. I knew that they were listening to my singing. I sang a song by a very famous artist that everyone had heard at least once. In fact, I was confident in my voice, having once aspired to be a voice actor. I sang the song perfectly. My mother-in-law's friends and relatives burst into applause. They all seemed surprised at my singing ability. As for my mother-in-law, her face was pale and she was embarrassed. Instead of being embarrassed, I was the one who ended up being praised. No wonder. What? Why? How can you sing so well? I answered my mother-in-law, who was in shock with a trembling voice. Well, I wanted to be a voice actor, and I had a lot of training with my voice, including singing. I was also in the church choir since I was small. I even won a prize in a competition. Huh? You never told me that. I continued. But you know, I was sure you must be a better singer than me. 'Cause you graduated from a music college, right? I would really love to listen to you sing a song. This time, choose a song in your specialty, please. Grandma, I want to hear you sing too. Then Ivy joined in. I can't. After hearing her sing like that. My mother-in-law looks around for help, breaking out in a cold sweat. But her friends and relatives are all looking expectantly at her, a graduate of a music college. My mother-in-law sighed at her inescapable situation and began to sing without any choice. Her singing was even worse than I expected. The people were giving her cold stares. It can't be helped. I majored in piano. Yes, the fact that my mother-in-law majored in piano, but she was not good at singing. Then Ivy said to her grandma, who was in a hurry to make excuses, "Oh, Grandma, you are not a good singer, are you?" My mother-in-law's face turned pale when her proud grandchild said that to her. Trevor, my husband, looked uncomfortable at the situation. Ivy continued. Grandma, you said Mommy was too stupid to sing, didn't you? You always said that Mommy was mean to you. But wasn't it you, Grandma? Being mean to my mommy. What? Ivy? As if interrupting his mother, Trevor opened his mouth. Ivy, sweetheart? Can you tell Daddy more about this? Then Ivy began to desperately talk about all the abusive things my mother-in-law had said to me in her poor language. She understood that my mother-in-law had always been hard on me, and she was hurt, even as a child. I thought, if I play with Grandma, then Grandma won't be mean to Mommy. So, I told Grandma I wanted her to teach me singing. But she kept saying mean things about Mommy, and I didn't like that. The only reason Ivy chose my mother-in-law over me that weekend was to protect me from her. Ivy's thoughtfulness choked both Trevor and me to the bone. Trevor quietly told my mother-in-law, who seems to be at a loss for words, Mom, you've been deceiving me, haven't you? By putting on a good face in front of me. I can't live with someone who hurts my family. Jasmine, I'm sorry I didn't understand you when you asked me for help. Let's get out of here and live just the three of us. Trevor's words brought me relief that I was finally free from my mother-in-law. Wait, Trevor! I'll apologize. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm your mother. My mother-in-law's voice echoed vainly in the silence. A few months have passed since then. My mother-in-law and I are no longer living together. We have not informed her of our new address. Me and Trevor, we're still busy working as usual. But now, I can spend time with Ivy on weekends, and I feel happier than ever. I want to spend more time with Ivy than my mother-in-law has ever taken from me. As for my mother-in-law, since that day, she has lost the trust of all her friends and relatives, and no one wants to spend time with her anymore. Rumors about that day have spread throughout the neighbors, and she seemed to have completely isolated herself from the rest of the family. I feel sorry for her, but she got what she deserved. I hope she learns to understand people's pain a little better. One weekend, as a family of 3, we are going to a musical. We hadn't been to a musical since we got married, and we're so excited we can take Ivy there. Maybe this will be an opportunity for her to say she wants to be a musical star. I can't wait to see what the future holds for my precious daughter. Thank you for watching to the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you like. See you in the next video.
When I got home, I heard my mother-in-law and husband whispering about their plans to drug me. They forgot what my profession is.
Now, this could be the end of that useless daughter-in-law. I came home early and heard my mother-in-law's strangely happy voice. Soon after, I heard my husband's disgusted laughter. I creep quietly into the kitchen where they are. In the dark hallway, I watched the two of them with bated breath. Well, tonight's the night, Mom. Tomorrow is the big day for her. I wonder how miserable she's going to feel after this. Oh, I can't wait. My mother-in-law grinds up whatever she has on hand and puts it in the pot. Then she smirked and had a nasty smile on her face. I gulped. What? Isn't that? I can't believe she just did that. I was shocked. But at the same time, I was determined. If that's what you're going to do, I dare you to take the bait. Dangerous? You see, they're forgetting the most important thing. That's what I do for a living. Why don't I do what I do the best? I'm looking forward to it. My name is Pamela. I've been married for 3 years now, and I'm a housewife. Our story is a little unique. It all started when my husband, Luke, fell in love with me on stage. I was a stage actress before we got married. I was quite successful, if I do say so myself. I was busy, but I loved acting. Above all, I loved the exhilaration of being on stage. Every day was fun and rewarding, and I knew it was my calling. I even had some fans. One of those fans was Luke. At the time, he came to see the play every day with great enthusiasm. Since Luke happened to be a friend of another theater company member, we went out to dinner together and started seeing each other, which led to a relationship and marriage. Luke was just so kind. He was happy just to be in the same space with me, probably because he had always been a fan. Luke took the initiative to do everything for me. His love was so excessive that sometimes I was a little taken aback.
I did it because I love you. I care for you, Pam. Please understand.
When he cried like that, I would forgive him. I guess that's the weakness of love. Our relationship was going well, and I thought that with him, my marriage would work out. But married life was a little different from what I expected. What bothered me was my mother-in-law. She didn't like the fact that I was going on stage.
If you're going to be a wife, you've got to give up the flirtatious job and concentrate on the housework. Above all, the most important job of a wife is to have children.
She forced me to quit the theater company. Even Luke, the nicest guy, seemed to put his mother before me when she is involved. He would hide the scripts from me so that I couldn't go to work. Moreover, he wouldn't let me in the house when I was late for practice, and he interfered my work. I tried many times to talk to Luke and plead with him to let me keep working, but he wouldn't listen to me. I was frustrating, but if I continued, it would cause trouble for the troupe members. In the end, I decided to become a housewife. First, you have to have children. To shut up my mother-in-law, who was always saying to me, first of all, you have to have a child. Until we have a child, I'll concentrate on housework. I can resume work when the child is grown up to some extent. In fact, I, too, wanted to have a child with Luke. But when I became a housewife, my mother-in-law's sarcasm got worse and worse. Our apartment was only a 20-minute drive from my parents-in-law's house. My mother-in-law, who had lost her husband a few years ago, came to our house every day in her spare time. Every time she comes, she eats leftovers without permission, complaining that the food was over-seasoned. Or she would open or close it without permission. And if it wasn't in order, she would rummage through it as she pleased and complain about it. When I was a stage actress, going to work was my pleasure. Now that I'm a housewife, I can't even have a peace of mind. My mother-in-law interferes with my life from morning till night and complains about everything I do. Stress was building up. On top of that, even Luke, who used to be so kind to me, became cold toward me.
You are a useless wife. All you can do is stay inside the house and be quiet. Don't talk back to me. Do the housework properly.
Just like his mother, he taunted me by telling me things like that. Furthermore, when my mother-in-law found out that I was making a good amount of money before we were married, she began to regularly ask me for money.
You have money, but you don't have time to spend it, right? Money is only worth something when you spend it. My mother-in-law would say such crazy things to me. When I refused to give the money, she started yelling at me, and things got out of hand. I had no choice but to give her money from my savings. Of course, I was angry at my mother-in-law for playing around so extravagantly with my money. After a year of marriage, the money I gave to my mother-in-law had become quite a large sum. Around the same time, I found messages on Luke's phone where he was having an affair with his coworker. In one of the messages, they said, "Pamela is dumb, so there's no way she would notice our relationship." Luke sent that kind of messages to his lover. He makes fun of me. I began to seriously consider divorce. Fortunately, Luke and I had no children. If we are going to get divorced, now would be the time. But I was a little lost because I was supposed to play a supporting role at the former theater company. I didn't tell Luke and my mother-in-law about it. Even after I got married, I continued to see the members of the troupe and my stage friends. I had to do so to keep my spirits up. One of the company members, who was worried about me while listening to my daily complaints, asked me if I wanted to appear in the show for a little while without telling anyone. I wanted to be on the stage so badly. I couldn't resist. I didn't care if it was a minor role. I just wanted to be on stage again. I immediately agreed. So if I got divorced now, I'd have to deal with that. And it might interfere with my rehearsals. It's my first time on stage in a long time, and I want to do whatever it takes to make it a success. I decided that now was not the time. So I decided to wait until after the show to get divorced. The show is just a few days away. One day, when I thought everything was going well, I was cooking dinner as usual, but my mother-in-law came up to me with her eyes raised. "Hey, Pamela, what's this?"
Where did you get this?
"It's from your bag. These are flyers and scripts for a play, aren't they?"
What my mother-in-law had in her hand was a flyer for a volunteer performance and a script for a play. What? You can't just go through someone's belongings without permission.
Shut up. It doesn't matter now.
You said you quit your job, didn't you?
Then, explain this to me.
Yes, I lied about being a part-timer and went to practice. Maybe I shouldn't have tried to go on stage behind her back. But that doesn't mean it's okay to go through other people's belongings. My mother-in-law was ranting as usual, and I was so frustrated that I yelled out loud. "So what? What's wrong with acting?" "Yes, I went to stage practice in secret. I lied about the part-time job."
What? You admit it? You lying bitch. You're just an amateur stage actor. You're so miserable clinging to the stage like that. My mother-in-law's words made me furious. I was dizzy with anger. I felt as if my vision was turned red. I feel bad that I lied to you. But what's wrong with doing what I love to do? My mother-in-law was surprised that I had spoken back so strongly. I continued my work regardless of my mother-in-law's flinch. I've been performing on stage all my life. Thanks to this job, I even met your son. And yet, you unreasonably deprived me of my work. On top of that, you bully me day in and day out. I can't take it anymore. Why can't I at least take a break and do what I love to do? I've been practicing for a month for the play, but I've always done all the chores properly. Neither you nor Luke noticed until now. Then what's wrong with that? Besides, the show is the day after tomorrow. No matter what you say now, I'm going on stage, I said in a single breath, and my mother-in-law didn't say anything, but her mouth was agape. For me, the stage was my reason for living and a stress reliever. Do you know the stress is bad for your health? Maybe the reason I can't have children is because of the stress of being with you every day. My mother-in-law's face contoured in frustration, but she left the house without saying anything. I told her everything that I had been building up in my mind. I came to the next day feeling very refreshed. I went to practice as usual. I was in better shape than usual, probably because I had given it all up yesterday. I went home early because it was the day before the show. Then, I found Luke and my mother-in-law talking about something in the kitchen. They seemed to be so absorbed in their conversation that they didn't notice me home. This would definitely be the end of Pamela's career as an actor. I stopped moving when I heard my mother-in-law's words. Finished as an actor? What the hell does that mean? I listened to their conversation under my breath. I could see that they were working on something. I quietly looked at their hands from a position out of sight of them. I gulped. My mother-in-law was holding nuts. She was grinding them in a blender and mixing them into the soup. I am allergic to nuts. Eating even a small amount of nuts can cause itching in the mouth and throat, making it difficult to speak. And I would get urticaria, and it wouldn't go out for a while. I made sure Luke understood it when we were dating. Could it be that they put the nuts so that I wouldn't be able to go on stage tomorrow? I came to my senses, took out the voice recorder I'd been carrying for practice, and started recording. It's finally going to happen tonight. This should give her a lesson. She got so cocky to talk back to me like that. Yeah. If she would just shut up and listen to you, Mom, then none of this would have happened. Oh, well, she's a hopeless wife. She doesn't learn until we teach her well, you know? You're right. I left home in shock at Luke's words. I knew my mother-in-law hated me with all her heart, but I couldn't believe that even Luke felt that way about me. I had believed him no matter what he said, somewhere in the back of my mind. With nowhere to go, I had unconsciously came to the rehearsal hall. Inside, several members of the troupe were practicing on their own. Hey, Pamela, what are you doing here? I thought you were going home early today. Oh, yeah, it's just, you know. Is something wrong? Are you okay? You can tell me. I found myself telling the troupe members everything I had just seen. They were surprised, but listened quietly to the end. I see. This is terrible. Hey, Pam, what do you think about doing it back? What? Now I quietly listened to the troupe members. After listening to their plan, I looked at them. My feelings were determined. I decided to do what they suggested. I will show Luke and my mother-in-law how serious I am. I came home a little later. I said I'm home more exaggerately than usual. Immediately after that, my mother-in-law came over and spoke to me in a petting voice. Pamela, you home? I'm sorry about yesterday. I didn't realize that I had pushed you too hard. I'm very sorry about that. Can you forgive me? Well, I thought you were tired from practice. That's why I made you a meal today. Here, look. You need to eat well and prepare for tomorrow, right? Come on, Pamela. Eat up. Eat up. There is the soup I saw earlier on the dining room table. I'm sure there are a lot of mashed nuts in it. I take my seat without saying a word. Thank you for your thoughtfulness. They look delicious. Yeah, right? Mom put her heart and soul into it. Luke and my mother-in-law, sitting in front of me, were looking at me with smiles I'd never seen before. To be honest, they looked disgusting. I pretended to eat the soup so that they wouldn't notice. I pretended to swallow. Then I stopped moving. I dropped the spoon, held my hands to my throat, and rolled out of the chair. I breathed hard and acting like I was thrashing around on the floor in agony. I never thought my acting skills would come in handy in a situation like this. Luke rushed over to me with a glass of water, panicking at the sight of my unimaginable agony. Why? Pamela? Are you okay? Take some water. Can you drink it? I heard Luke's crying voice in my ear. My mother-in-law is hovering around me in a panic. Oh my god. I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted you to suffer a little. I just wanted you to miss the show tomorrow. All I did was put a little nuts in the soup. Just a little. Mom, not now. Call an ambulance. No. No ambulance. Think about what the neighbors would say if we got in trouble with the police. It was supposed to be a prank. What should we do? I see. I understand very well. Hearing my mother-in-law's words, I stopped suffering and slowly stood up. As I was fixing my messy hair, a panicked-looking Luke came up to me. Pamela? Are you alright? Yes, I am. It was just an act, you know? What? What are you surprised about? I'm an actress. Acting? Well, then you're not. My mother-in-law's face is getting red. Pamela, how dare you? Do you think you can go in making fun of people like this? It's you and your son who are making fun of me. You put nuts in my food, right? So I wouldn't be on stage tomorrow. That's... Don't try to play dumb with me. I have proof. I pulled out a voice recorder from my bag. It's got a screen that shows it's recording. And I have witnesses. Shadows of people creep out from behind the door. They're the members of the theater troupe. They had followed me home, as they thought I would need witnesses as well. Luke and my mother-in-law looked at the troupe members in daze, frozen in place. Oh, Pamela, don't get so serious. This is just for fun, you know? We are family. So, forgive us, okay? My mother-in-law laughs at me with a weird smile on her face. Family? Don't make me laugh. I've studied all kinds of acting as a job. And you think you can get through to me with such bad acting? I know so well that you don't like me. Do you expect me to forgive you now? Quit dreaming. When I said that, I showed them the divorce papers. No way! My mother-in-law and husband both started to panic, as if they didn't think I was thinking of divorce. As I played the data I had recorded earlier, I said, would you rather go to the police or get a divorce? After that, Luke and I divorced without a fight. Since there was also the matter of the affair, I demanded alimony. Since my ex-husband started struggling to pay for the alimony, his lover ran away from him. On top of that, it seems that the way Luke treated me also became quite a rumor in the company. As a result, he had no choice but to voluntarily resign from the company. Yet, my ex-mother-in-law resented me and tried to get in my way to return to the stage as an actress. However, A member of the troop found her waiting for me at the back entrance and reported her to the police. No matter how many times I warned her, she kept trying to ambush me and mess up the stage. I finally asked the police to issue a restraining order against her. My ex-husband still hasn't found a new job, and his mother has become the talk of the neighborhood because of the arrest. The two of them have been living a hard life together, trying to hide from the neighborhood. I am happy to be back on stage, which I love, and I'm enjoying it every day. I guess this stage is where I can breathe the most easily. I'm not saying I'll never get married again, but for the time being, I'm happy with my job as my lover. Thank you for watching to the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you like. See you in the next video.
My husband began to treat me horribly, so I lied to him for him to care about me. But he was cheating on me.
Please help me. I can't take it anymore. I called my husband, Dominic, while he was on a business trip. I told him that my mother-in-law has bullied me every single day and that I couldn't take it anymore, which is why I called for help. But...
Huh? You know that I'm working right now. You do know that, right?
I could hear how irritated Dominic was over the phone, and I got a little nervous.
As my wife, you're supposed to be patient and endure all the difficulties. So, to be honest, if you're not even aware that you have to be patient or endure such difficulties, then you're not fit to be my wife at all. If you ever call me again just for this, I will not allow you to call me anymore. Alright? Don't you dare bother me about these petty things again. And just listen to what my mother has to say. That's all.
And just saying that, Dominic hung up on me without even hearing what I needed to say. I just only wanted him to help me. I cried and dialed again, but my husband never picked up. Oh, finally I see. This man is never going to help me, huh? I closed my eyes while I cried. My name is Bella. I got married to my husband Dominic 3 years ago. Dominic was a salesman at the company I had joined as a new employee, and as his direct subordinate, he had taught me many things about the work and how the company ran. At the time, I found him wonderful to work with, so when he began to approach me, I felt really happy. We ended up dating less than a year after I joined the company, and in the winter of my second year at the company, Dominic had proposed. I had actually intended to continue working after we got married, but Dominic refused that I continue working at the company.
A husband is supposed to make things easy for his wife. Besides, it would be more convenient for us if we were thinking about having kids and the future.
I could understand his point of view, but I also had my own reasons for wanting to work. I needed to be prepared to give up the career I had built over the years. And above all, I was proud of my current job. In the end, however, my opinion did not go through. I was told to quit work, and I was told to leave the company before I began my third year at the company. Dominic and I had talked about many things before we got married, but the thing he was most concerned about was the house. Both of us had been living alone, but Dominic suggested that we move into a new house when we got married.
I'll be responsible for getting our house, so please just terminate the contract for the place that you're living in right now. We've already got the property, so we can move there soon enough.
When I asked him questions about what kind of house it was, Dominic never told me anything about it or the details of the house. He said it was a surprise, but for me, I was worried about it. I was worried about what kind of house we would move into, but he had no hesitation in terminating the contract on the place where he lives currently, so I also terminated the contract for my place too. And that was how I was brought into Dominic's parents' house. I complained to Dominic about it, but he just replied in a grumpy manner.
My mom has been living on her own ever since my dad passed away a few years ago. Don't you feel sorry for her? She's your husband's family, so don't get so depressed about it.
Even so, wouldn't it be nice to have a word about it beforehand? You should take into consideration about me too.
What the heck? You don't want to live together with my family that much? I've asked a lot of people around me and no one dislikes the idea as much as you do. So, it seems like you're the one who has a bad personality, huh?
As Dominic said that, he shook his head as if to say that I was the one who was insane. I had so many things I wanted to say back to him, but I already had no job to go back to and no home, so I didn't have enough power to just refuse and leave. Thus, I began my life with my mother-in-law, Abby. Well, actually, living with Abby was a wonderful experience. I often hear stories about wives who are harassed by their husbands' mothers, and I was afraid that Abby would bully me, but she never did that. In fact, I was the one being taken care of more by Abby than me taking care of Abby. I am so happy that a nice girl like you married my son. And I'm so glad that you're going to live with us. I've been so lonely by myself. Thank you. Abby had treated me like her real daughter. She helps me with my share of the house chores, and she's really good at baking, and has taught me all kinds of recipes. Oh, it's like I'm having a real daughter. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm having fun every day. Like this, Abby has never forgotten to thank me. Seeing this wonderful side of Abby, I felt really bad for not wanting to live with her in the beginning. After 3 years of living with Abby, I felt it was time for Dominic and I to move on to the next step. To have a baby. If I got pregnant, Abby would definitely help me, so I wouldn't have to worry. Besides, I wanted to make Abby happy by showing her the face of her grandchild as soon as possible. Dominic, honey, don't you think it's time to start thinking about having a baby soon? When I asked Dominic, he stared at me as if he had seen something he didn't like.
If you really feel that way, why don't you try your best to be attractive more? We've been spending so much time together lately that I haven't been that attracted to you, and I haven't been looking at you as a woman.
I was speechless when he said that to me. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'll do my best, so you should be supportive too, Dominic. You would want to show your own mother the face of her grandchild as soon as possible, wouldn't you? Then Dominic thought for a moment and answered as if he was a little annoyed.
I'm tired from work today. Let's talk tomorrow.
Dominic's nonchalant attitude continued, and he did not seem to be giving the matter any serious thought. He was also coming home extremely late these days. Even though he was a salesman, he was not supposed to work that late, but recently he was coming home very late, around midnight. Hey, aren't you coming home very late these days? With your job, there is no work that requires you to stay that late, is there?
Oh, shut up. You've only been in the company for a few years, so what do you know about my work? I go home tired, and you can't even be grateful for what I do around here.
This is how Dominic has been lately. It feels like a long time ago when we used to get along well with each other. I'm sure that if I let things continue like this, our marriage will collapse someday. But Dominic doesn't seem to have the supportive feelings to even be there for me. Not knowing what to do, I decided to talk to Abby about what has been happening. She took my feelings into consideration and comforted me with kind words. Ah, yes. Then, let's do this. let's have Dominic worry about you and maybe he'll be more serious. And what she suggested was that I lie to Dominic and tell him that Abby was bullying me badly. Oh, I can't do that. I can't make you, who has always been so good to me, a bad person. I am happy enough that you feel that way, Bella. Besides, I want to see my grandchild's face as soon as possible, so I want you guys to have a good relationship as a husband and wife. Abby gently persuaded me to go through with the plan to get Dominic worried about me. Dominic was off work that day, but he had gone for a drive to get away from distractions and to get refreshed. I called him at a time when he would be eating lunch, and he answered the phone as if he was a little irritated.
What is it? I'm driving and feeling all good, but then you call me and ruin these good vibes. Now you're just gonna spoil the fun.
Hey, I actually have something to say that I don't feel comfortable talking to you about at home. Actually, Abby is harassing me very badly. I continued the conversation, acting like I was whispering so people wouldn't hear me. Next to me, Abby was having her hand over her mouth, desperately trying not to burst out laughing. I was looking forward to seeing how my husband would react, but what came out of his mouth were just so shocking to hear.
You're the wife, so you're supposed to put up with it. You're saying that my mom is harassing you, but I think that it's partially your fault for being so useless too, don't you think? You don't even work anyway, you just stay at home, so you at least should put up with it. Also, my mom must be going through menopause and maybe everything you do is getting on her nerves, you know? The only thing mom's looking forward to is probably harassing you, so just let her do it.
Dominic laughed it off as he said this, and this just left me speechless. Plus, I could hear a woman's voice in the background of our phone call. The only thing that your wife is worth for is for her to take care of your old mother. I heard those words just before I hung up the phone. As I hung up the phone, Abby and I looked at each other. The conversation I had with Dominic was on speaker so that Abby could hear everything we were saying. I can't believe Dominic would say those awful things about you, Bella. I can't believe Dominic would say such a thing about you, Abby. Then we both shouted, "That's absolutely unacceptable." And the woman's voice we heard over the phone was clearly talking to Dominic. When Dominic left this morning, he was saying that he was going for a relaxing drive all day alone, but I never thought that he was there with another woman. I also suspected him of cheating on me, but it's not like he's going to tell me the truth when I question him. I discussed with Abby and decided to go through with pretending of not knowing until we found any sort of proof. A few days later, Dominic suddenly left the house, saying he had to go on a business trip.
I'll be gone for a few days, so please take care of my mom and the house for me. Don't cry if my mom harasses you.
Dominic left the house with a smile on his face, and I could see that this man was not going to the business trip for work. When I tried to call him at night or other times, he wouldn't answer his phone, and when I sent him a message, he wouldn't reply. It seems that he doesn't intend to respond to me at all during his business trip. Taking advantage of this, Abby and I immediately contacted an investigator to investigate about Dominic's affair. And the results of the investigation came out immediately. And our theory was right. And it seemed that he was not very good at hiding his affair, and many photos were taken of him getting along with his mistress in different places. All of these photos were taken during this business trip. When my mother-in-law and I saw the photos of Dominic and his mistress, we could do nothing but just sigh. I don't remember raising him to be that much of a scumbag. I'm so disappointed in that boy. More than the affair, I was angry at Dominic for making Abby feel that way, so I immediately called him. I thought he wouldn't answer anyway, but this time he happened to answer. Dominic, what are you doing now? Aren't you supposed to be at work? I accused him in a pretty direct way, and Dominic yelled back at me, being all surprised.
Of course I'm doing work. I went out of my way to pick up the phone in the midst of my busy schedule. You're such a jerk. Because you're not being inconsiderate like that, my mom harasses you. Say any more nonsense and I'll tell on you to my mom too.
Dominic was still thinking that Abby was bullying me, even though it was a big fat lie. He probably thinks that if he is picking on his wife, Abby would be on his side. But Abby herself was standing next to me, red-faced and angry with Dominic. Dominic, who didn't know about this, was just laughing away, saying terrible things to me.
You accuse me of having an affair, but aren't you doing that because actually you're having an affair and you get worried, right? I wonder who you're with now, Bella. Are you actually with a guy or something? Well, I know that it's not possible though. You're not that attractive as a woman because, after all, women are all about their charms. You need to learn something about that.
Behind Dominic's laughter, I could hear a woman laughing. With everything Dominic has been saying to me, I got so hurt that I was just about to cry. Dominic! How did you become such a lousy human being? Suddenly startled by his mother's voice, Dominic jumped up.
Mom? You're together with Bella? Why? I thought you two didn't get along.
Unlike you, how can I be on bad terms with such a nice girl? I can't believe you're cheating on Bella and making her so sad like this.
Wait, Mom. First of all, I don't understand what you mean by me cheating on Bella. Bella must have told you lies anyways. I'm on a business trip and this is for work. Please, believe me.
Then, is it okay if we contact the company about it? And immediately, Dominic began to panic even more. To the company, he must have taken a leave for the vacation trip. The business trip was a lie from the very beginning. I can no longer consider a man like you as my son. My love for you as your mother is completely gone. There is no place for you here and you do not have to come back here anymore. Saying that, Abby hung up the phone. As I froze at Abby's yelling, which I had never heard from her before, she gave me her usual gentle smile. Well, let's get ready, shall we? We then immediately began to prepare and leave the house. I sent my important things to my parents' house for now and left only the signed divorce papers onto the table. Abby apparently owned a vacation home which Dominic didn't know about, and I hired a mover to move everything, including the furniture, from there that day. I'm giving this house away. That boy will be spoiled as long as he knows that I am here. I have to make sure he gets a good punishment for the mistakes he made. Abby said this with a smile and also had people to replace the locks on the house. A few days later, Dominic finally came home and was at a loss when he tried to enter the house. He could not get in touch with Abby and I either, and he was forced to sleep in a small hotel for a while. Even when he went back to work, he never got a break. We had reported his affair to Dominic's company as well. When his boss saw the photos of Dominic's affair, he immediately turned pale. Actually, the woman with whom Dominic was having an affair was apparently the daughter of the president of one of their clients. Knowing that the whole company knows, Dominic confessed about his affair. He was immediately sent to apologize and see their client, but there was no way he would be forgiven. It was a major company, but the contract they had were terminated because of what had happened, and that caused tremendous damage to Dominic's company. Everyone at work found out about Dominic's affair, and he resigned a few days later, having lost his place in the company. The last time I saw him was when we were communicating through the lawyer for a divorce and alimony due to his affair. Seeing Dominic becoming so depressed, I realized that if you do the wrong thing, you will always get hurt. I also filed a claim for alimony with Dominic's mistress. And Dominic was also being sued from his mistress. The mistress had also been disowned by her parents and kicked out of their house, so that's why she was suing Dominic. Dominic will have to deal with them now, and he will continue to have a hard time, but I don't really care what happens to him now. Dominic and I are divorced now, but I still kept in touch with Abby. Her vacation home was actually located near my parents' house. I would occasionally visit her and we would eat sweets that Abby made and cashed up with each other. It was a difficult few years, but now that I am having a good time with Abby, I feel that it was all a good learning experience for me. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
My mill decides to move in and plans to exploit me, but there is a strange woman in the house.
My belongings will be delivered to your house next week. Accept them all, okay? You are so clumsy and inconsiderate. I'm moving in to re-educate you on how to be the proper wife. The least you can do is to give me my own room, even if you have to move your things out. My mother-in-law gives me the news out of the blue. Moving? Re-education? What on earth is she talking about? My husband has never mentioned that she was moving in with us. Anyway, who does she think she is talking about re-education? She doesn't care about my feelings and really moves in the week after. When she sees her son in the house, she screams like Munch. This is when she comes to know who really needs to be re-educated. She also realizes that there is no house for her to live in, because my real home is. I was a working wife who had been married for 3 years. I met my husband Marcus through a friend, and we hit it off right away. After 2 years of dating, we got married. We were both working. We've lived alone before, so both of us were capable of doing a full range of housework. After we got married, we decided that whoever noticed it or had free time would take care of it. This policy seemed to suit us better than a clear division of chores. We never had any dispute over them. When my work became busier, Marcus' share of the workload increased a little at home. Even though it was a rule that we had decided upon together, I felt a little bad about it. I made up for it by buying him nice dessert and treating him to a meal on weekends. I felt like I was bribing him with food, but he always said, "I'm happy to do it this way, rather than overwhelming you at home." I was reassured that I married a really good guy. I prayed that those happy days would last forever. Just as I was hoping, my father-in-law passed away. He had married late, so he was already quite old. It was sad, but Marcus accepted it as inevitable to a certain extent. For my mother-in-law Louise, who had been with him for many years, it was not that easy. She must have felt so lonely after the sudden loss of her husband that she struggled to be alone and began to visit us frequently. On weekdays, she came over after we got home from work. On weekends, she sometimes showed up in the morning. To be honest, it was a little hard for me to entertain her from the morning on my days off. Although I was quite tired from work, I couldn't neglect a grieving mother-in-law. I was determined to help her heal and recover as much as possible. As she continued to rely on us, I noticed that the reason for her visit had somehow changed. In the beginning, we just chit-chatted over meals and drinks. We talked about the news, my work, how I was getting along with Marcus, etc., etc. I was not sure if it was appropriate to mention my father-in-law, but sometimes the conversation unexpectedly turned to him. She sometimes shed tears, and I quietly stayed beside her. However, she started focusing more and more on me as a wife. Getting unwanted advice would have been better than the criticism. The inside of the refrigerator was not well organized. Laundry and cleaning were not done properly. There were too many discarded packages of cup noodles and ready-made food in the trash. She asked me if I was trying to destroy my health before I had a baby. I was often criticized like that. It was inevitable that as long as we both worked and shared the chores, there were some sloppy jobs. We were both laid back, so we were never bothered by the details and weren't even thinking about starting a family. I understood what she was trying to say, but if only she got better and stopped coming over so often, I could have tended to my housework more. Of course, I didn't dare to tell her that. Yes, right, I'm sorry. I had no choice but to nod my head in agreement. One weekend, she came over as usual. She saw Marcus washing the dishes and suddenly started scolding me. Why is my son washing the dishes? You're the wife. You should be the one doing it. I froze at her outburst. She paid no attention to me and took the plate and sponge from his hands. She then made him sit on the sofa and pulled me to the kitchen. I stood in front of the sink, feeling a little irritated, but trying to talk as calmly as possible. Listen, Louise, we both work, right? That's why we share the housework. It just so happened that he was doing it today. I don't leave everything to him, so... Don't talk back to me! I tried to explain, but she didn't want to listen to me or try to understand. I thought that if Marcus explained it to her, she would have at least tried to understand a little. I glanced at him with hopeful eyes. He nodded as if he understood. I believed that he was going to help me out of the awkward situation. I was relieved for a moment. Then, he blurted out totally unexpected things.
Mom, calm down. It's not good for your health to get so upset. You have a point though. I'm going to make her do the right things from now on. Honey, you should apologize to her.
He looked at me. Why didn't he just tell her that we shared the chores? I thought about saying so, but I felt there was no point in arguing with Louise any further. I will be careful in the future. I apologized and put the matter to rest. I asked Marcus what he was up to after she left. No matter how much I told her about our rule, she wouldn't have listened to me as long as she saw me as a bad wife. If he had told her, she would have listened to him. That would have been all it took to settle the matter. Why did he have to make it worse? He sensed how angry I was and started excusing himself.
I was just trying to smooth things over. I'm sure if I explained about the shared responsibilities, my old-fashioned mom wouldn't have understood. You know I didn't really agree with her, right? She'll eventually understand.
He tried to justify himself, but we knew each other for a long time. I knew that he was bullshitting. In fact, I thought he was hoping that he wouldn't have to do the housework. He had been kind of a trickster ever since we started dating. As I mentioned before, I was easygoing, and he had never caused any serious trouble, so he got away as mischievous. I saw no remorse in him, but more than anything, I was exhausted. I decided to swallow hard and assumed that he wanted to show his mother some dignity. Well, we had been sharing the workload so far. Things would have been back to normal the next day. I had such faint hope. However, since that day, he had started to ignore his share of chores blatantly. We never specified which one of us was in charge of what, but he stopped doing them like he used to. I thought he might have been sulking because I had confronted him about Louise, but that was not the case. He was neglecting our home, so I gave him a warning. Unexpectedly, he responded.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He agreed with me. I thought it was normal to be lazy sometimes. Just when I was telling myself that, Louise showed up unannounced the next day. She had always contacted me beforehand, so it alarmed me. I wondered if there was something wrong with her. I was concerned, but what she told me was completely different. I hear that you still haven't learned your lesson, and haven't done any housework. Don't you even want to feed your husband something good? Marcus tells me he hasn't been eating homemade food lately because you don't cook at all. I immediately glared at him. Had he snitched on me that I had warned him? No, it wasn't my fault in the first place, so snitch wasn't the right word. He didn't want to do the chores, so he was trying to make me take all the blame. As a result, she started coming over more often than before, and he stopped doing anything altogether. I even had to take over the things he was supposed to do when he got home before me. If I wasn't so busy at work, I could have handled them with ease, but my work was still hectic. I had to cut down my sleep to get everything done, and was getting physically exhausted. I knew that I was going to collapse if I continued like this, and decided to talk to him again. Unfortunately for me, his work had become busy around that time, and we could not have a proper talk. I thought it was inevitable if it was work, but his schedule was outrageous. It was normal for him to come home well after midnight during the week. On weekends, he worked all day long, and in the worst cases, he stayed overnight at the office, saying the commute was a waste of time. Just the other day, I was thinking of discussing Luis, but then I was worried that he was overworked. When I saw him at home, I asked him if he was okay. He replied without a trace of fatigue,
Yes, I'm fine.
I was relieved to hear that, but I thought he looked too energetic. If he was working that hard, he should have shown a little bit of fatigue in his appearance. I wondered how he had so much stamina. I was truly perplexed. If his company was making him work as much as he did, they might have been violating the fair labor standards. I decided to talk to my colleague. Her family member worked for the same company as him. When I told her about the way Marcus was working, she looked at me puzzled. It is indeed a busy season right now, but I don't think they have to work that hard. It may vary from department to department. Even so, they are very strict about hours nowadays, unlike in the past. In other words, Marcus' hard work was not a complete lie, but it was not completely true either. I had a hunch. He didn't come home from work. I was also busy with mine. Because of my frantic life, I could not keep up with the housework. The house was in a miserable state. I was supposed to get a day off the next day. If I spent the whole day, the house would have been back in order. That was my plan. But then, Luis showed up to my dismay. What in the world happened in this house? The moment I entrust you with the housework, it becomes like this? No wonder my son has been doing it. I have been telling you that we share. I was about to explain again when I realized that there was no point in arguing with her. As I was hesitating, she made a gesture as if she had just thought of something. I'm going back home for today. I just remembered something to do. She headed for the door. I was ready to be scolded, so I felt a bit deflated. If the monster had gone away by itself, I had nothing to complain about though. A few days later, she declared something frightening. Hello. My belongings will be delivered to your house next week. Accept them all, okay? After seeing the house in such a state, I can't just not to do anything. You are so clumsy and inconsiderate. For the sake of my son, I'm going to train you how to be the proper wife. I'm going out of my way to move in with you. The least you can do is to give me my own room, even if you have to move your things out. As soon as I answered the phone, she ranted selfishly. There wasn't even a discussion about her move, but her belongings were already on the way. I was sick and tired of her treating me as a fool. If that was how she wanted to play, I had a plan too. I had been contemplating it for some time and decided to act on it then. The day the package arrived and she was moving in, I received a call from her. I didn't feel like dealing with her, so I kept ignoring the calls. She kept calling again and again, without a pause for eternity. I had no choice but to answer the phone, and heard her shrieking on the other end. "What in the world is going on? Where are you? Who the hell is the woman with my son?" It was the first time I had ever heard her lose control of herself, and I couldn't help but laugh at her. "What's so funny?" she asked, sounded irritated, but there was no other way I could react. I didn't think my plan was going to work out so perfectly. I was not home that day. I told Marcus that I was going to see my parents for a couple of days. I expected that he was going to bring his lover into the house while I was gone. When there was a discrepancy between his busy schedule and the information from my colleague, I asked a private investigator to look into his whereabouts. It turned out that he was having an affair with his younger colleague. On weekdays, he used the company car to drive back to our house with her. On weekends, he was going to hotels near and far from home. He was even getting paid overtime for working after hours to make up for the time he spent cheating on me. There was no way that such a man wasn't going to have the woman over while I was away. He was probably planning to have his way at home until he was drained out. But Louise and the movers arrived. I wanted to reveal the debauched and sinful son to her. That was my plan. I told her all of that. She was in total shock. I could only hear her making gasping sounds. It was a pity that I couldn't see what kind of face she was making. By the way, I was not with my parents. I was actually visiting a realtor to sign a contract for a new house and cancel the lease of my current one. I was in the middle of it when I got a call from her, and my realtor was patiently waiting for me to finish. "Listen, Louise, I'm busy canceling the lease for my house and stuff, so I will cut to the chase. You made a fool of me and told me that I needed to be trained. Do you realize who really needs it now? And you insinuate that woman do the housework. Who do you think pays the rent of that house? Me. He shared the housework because I was busier and made more money than him. Oh, but he's busy shaking his hips for another woman now, right? Well, I can care less. As for divorce and alimony, my attorney will contact him at a later date. Don't get in touch with me ever again." I was about to hang up the phone and heard her sobbing and pleading with me. "I just terminated my lease on my old house. Where am I supposed to go if this house is no more?" She had been enjoying picking on me, yet she relied on me when inconvenienced. "It's none of my business. Talk to your idiot son." I hung up the phone for real. A few days later, I filed for divorce and 100,000 alimony was being negotiated. I didn't doubt my excellent attorney. Marcus, of course, was dismissed from his job along with his lover because of the incident. I heard through my attorney that he was dumped by her, who told him that she should not have gotten involved. I would have loved to see the two idiots get together and lead a miserable life, but I erased such a wicked thought immediately. Instead, I was told an interesting story. There was still one mystery left. How did Marcus keep up with both busy work and affairs without any sign of exhaustion? One factor could have been that he was enjoying the affair so much that adrenaline helped him. The biggest factor was simply that he was using a lot of over-the-counter energy boosters. As a result, he developed some internal organ problems as a side effect of the drugs, and he could no longer work as much as he used to. Excessive consumption of substances is always a bad idea. The lease of the previous house is terminated as declared. Marcus and Louise don't have the means to keep living there. I don't know where or how they are currently living, or even if they are still alive. They don't matter to me anymore. I am more excited about my new life of freedom.
One day, a massive amount of my mother-in-law's belongings arrived at my new home. It felt like her way of saying, "Once I send it over, it's your problem."
We're going to live with my mom from now on. Don't talk back to me.
That was the last straw for me. I absolutely refused to live with them. I was determined not to let them have their way and was set on showing them how. My name is Lena, 31 years old. I've been working at a major company for almost 10 years. I wasn't used to the job at first, but they have recently entrusted me with important tasks, and I just got a promotion. I met my husband Mike, who is the same age as me, at the same company. He had always talked about wanting to start his own business, and after leaving the company, he made that dream a reality. However, venturing into the unknown world of business was not as easy for him. While he didn't go bankrupt, his earnings are minimal now, and he's been running at a loss. He's gotten to the point where he can't pay the few employees he has left, and now there are only a few people remaining in the company. Thankfully, my salary is decent, so we're not struggling too much financially. If anything, buying my own house has just been pushed back a bit. I've always dreamed of having my own house. When we got married, I made it clear to him. I want to buy our own house as soon as we have the funds. He smiled warmly at my words.
You've been saying that since we were dating. Oh, I think it's a great idea. I'll help out too.
Really? Thank you. It's been a dream of mine for so long, so I'm glad you said that.
Things might get tough, but let's work hard together as a couple.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, when my husband was still working at the same company, our savings were growing smoothly. However, as his business started losing money, he began to dip into his savings more and more. Eventually, he even had to use our joint savings. I ended up giving him half of it. By now, we should have had enough for our dream home. I wouldn't say it was entirely his fault, but we could have bought it a bit sooner than planned. That dissatisfaction was real. When our funds were halved, I was worried about what would happen. However, after saving diligently without touching my bonuses for a few years, I managed to save enough for our dream home by myself. I decided to share the good news with my husband right away. Mike, guess what? I finally saved up enough for our new home.
Really? That's amazing.
So, I was thinking about checking out some places and visiting construction companies soon. Maybe this Sunday?
This Sunday? That won't work.
Why not? I have the day off from work too.
It's not that, it's my mom's birthday. I told you we were going to her place.
Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot. He clicked his tongue and made a visibly displeased face.
Forgetting your husband's mother's birthday, isn't that kind of bad? It's way more important than a house, right?
Sorry, but I've really been working hard on this. I wanted to get started as soon as possible.
I don't want to hear excuses. Forgetting my mom's birthday is unthinkable. You've got her present ready, right?
Present?
She's been wanting a new washing machine. You forgot already?
A washing machine? Wait, are we supposed to buy it?
Not we. You're buying it. You know I don't have an income right now. Are you being sarcastic?
No, that's not what I meant. I tried to explain, but he continued to complain, yelling at me to act like a wife before storming out of the room. He is usually kind and a good person, but his attitude changes drastically when it comes to his mother. After his parents divorced, his mother raised him as a single mom with great effort. It seems his gratitude towards her manifests in this way. Knowing her son is on her side, she always boldly scolds me whenever I visit her. Frankly, I couldn't care less about celebrating the birthday of someone who believes me so openly. Though it would upset my husband, our new home is far more important to me. However, as his wife, his mother is family to me too. So, despite my preferences, I ended up celebrating her birthday reluctantly. A few days later, when we visited my mother-in-law, Iris, I wished her a happy birthday.
So, anyway, where's my birthday present?
I heard you wanted a new washing machine, but there are so many types.
What? You haven't bought it yet?
I thought I'd ask which one you'd prefer. Without hesitation, she said,
Just buy the most expensive one.
Excuse me?
I said, just buy the most expensive one.
I couldn't understand why I was being scolded while she yelled at me, turning red with anger. Mike tried to calm her down while telling me,
You're really no good. You know, Mom loves expensive brands. Just buy the most expensive one.
What? What's going on? It's not like I said I wouldn't buy it. If I had bought it without talking to them first, they would have complained about that too. As I stewed in my frustration, she sighed dramatically.
Fine, just transfer $1,500 to my account.
What?
Didn't you hear me? $1,500. Since you didn't bring a present, you should at least do that.
But last month, you said you were struggling with living expenses, so I already gave you $700. We have our own expenses, so $1,500 is a bit much. She got furious, turning red and yelling.
What are you talking about? You're being supported by my son. You should have some leeway since Mike is taking care of everything.
Well, that's not really...
How can you be so obsessed with money? I heard from my son that you're planning to buy your own house.
Yes, that's right.
So you have the nerve to refuse me $1,500 when you can afford it? What a stingy daughter-in-law I have. I'm disappointed in you.
Disappointed? Your son hasn't contributed to living expenses for years, and our current lifestyle is solely supported by my income. She is unaware of the precarious state of her son's business, believing his performance is thriving and supporting our household. I could reveal the truth, but that would undermine his position. Despite this, I remained silent for his sake. Initially grateful, he now behaves as if he's the breadwinner, especially in front of his mother.
Hey, Lena, my mom's struggling. Can't you chip in a bit?
His complicity in his mother's bullying is routine. Exasperated, I retorted, If you're so concerned, why don't you contribute?
I'm covering all our living expenses. You're only saving for the house, so you should be able to help out now.
Are you serious? Even the living expenses, I began to reveal the truth, but he immediately cut me off.
You just got your bonus. Use that to help Mom.
Fine, but this is the last time. I conceded, eventually transferring $1,500 to Iris. Avoiding further conflict seemed easier, and it would cost less than the most expensive washing machine. Months later, despite minor disputes with my mother-in-law and husband, I successfully purchased my new home. I ignored their endless opinions on the layout and decor, having funded it myself. The anticipation of owning my dream home thrilled me. As the completion neared and I began packing, my husband critiqued my furniture choices for the new house.
You're not planning to put that furniture in our new home, are you?
What do you mean? I am, because I like them.
No way. My mom doesn't like that type of furniture.
Why does her preference matter here? He then made an unbelievable statement.
Well, duh. She's moving into the new house with us. Since you decided on the house's layout and decor, at least match the furniture to my mom's taste. Don't be too assertive. You're the wife.
His absurd reasoning left me with a headache. What was he even talking about? I never agreed to live together. Before it was too late, I made my stance clear. What are you going on about? I have no intention of living with your mother.
What? It's natural for a son to invite his mother to live with us in a new, spacious house.
Stop it. I paid for everything.
Shut up. I guess this will be the only way.
He stormed out, then returned, brandishing a divorce paper.
You know what this is?
A divorce paper? What are you trying to do?
I thought you wouldn't understand unless I was strict. I got this just in case. You'd be in trouble if I divorced you.
His name was already filled in on the husband's section, apparently intending to use it as leverage. Thinking the threat of divorce would make me comply, his shallow tactics left me speechless. Mistaking my silence for defeat, he smugly added,
Being divorced now would make you a divorcee. That'll ruin your reputation at work, especially after your recent promotion.
What are you trying to say?
You're the wife. Just quietly listen to me and my mom. I'll give you time to cool off until the moving day. Alright? My mom will live with us in the new home. Make sure there's a room for her.
At that moment, my patience shattered. So if that's how you feel, do whatever you want. I'll make sure to settle this grudge. A week later, as I unpacked in silence, the doorbell rang.
We'll start loading in the boxes now.
Expecting a delivery, I opened the door to find a moving truck outside. What's this about? I confronted my mother-in-law, who was directing the movers. Iris, what's going on here?
I'm moving in today. Mike's at work, so I came by myself.
I didn't agree to this. Please leave immediately.
What are you saying? We were supposed to live together in this house.
No, you're not. I never agreed to that. You decided on your own.
What did you say?
I turned to the movers, clearly stating, Sorry guys, but she doesn't live here. Can you take the stuff back?
Well, we're just following orders, ma'am.
This house is under my name. I can't have unknown items brought in without my consent.
Well...
The movers hesitantly began to collect the items, prompting an enraged outburst from Iris.
Hey, you! What do you think you're doing?
Me? Who do you think you are, trying to move in without my permission?
Of course I'm moving in. You're just the wife, don't talk back.
Wife? Me?
Yes, you. Just so you know, a mother-in-law's word is law. A daughter-in-law's belongings are mine.
I'm single, though.
Huh?
Didn't you hear? I'm single. I divorced Mike recently.
What? What are you talking about? That can't be. Mike never said anything.
But your son was the one who presented me with the divorce papers, already filled out, which was actually quite helpful.
Wait, this has to be a joke. And a divorce would only trouble you. How would you manage this house without his income?
Oh, about that. Your son doesn't earn anything.
That can't be. Mike is the president of a company.
The president of a company that's on the verge of bankruptcy. He's been running at a loss for years, and I've been covering all our living expenses. I kept quiet in front of you, but there's no need to lie now that we're not married.
So, this house is really all yours?
Yes. With my current salary, paying off the mortgage alone is no issue, so don't worry. You shouldn't underestimate the earnings of someone working for a major corporation.
But So, could you please leave now? And never show up in front of me again. Goodbye. Wait! I cut off my ex-mother-in-law mid-sentence and locked the door. Not long after, my ex-husband called.
What the hell is going on? My mom called crying, saying she was kicked out.
Who is this?
Huh?
I told this to my ex-mother-in-law too, but I'm single now.
Single? You mean you actually submitted that divorce paper?
So what? You were the one who brought it to me, so no complaints, right?
Are you crazy? I never intended to actually divorce. It's invalid.
To think that instead of apologizing, he would impose his selfishness on me. So I told him, enough. After all I've done to support you, you're not even thanking me and instead saying the divorce is invalid? Don't make me laugh. Who do you think has been supporting us these past few years?
Well, but as a married couple, that's natural. You had a duty to support me.
Duty? Yes, indeed. So I played along, pretending you were the one earning while you acted all high and mighty.
Calm down. I didn't mean any harm.
Oh, just shut the F up already. It's too late now. We're divorced strangers now. Your company can go bankrupt for all I care. Enjoy living with your mommy.
Wait, please. I'm sorry.
I hung up without listening to the rest. Hours later, my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law tried to force their way into my new home, but I called the police and they were taken away. Apparently, their apartment was already cancelled, leaving Iris homeless. She had no choice but to move into Mike's apartment, but with no income, they couldn't pay the rent. Eventually, his company went bankrupt and they moved into a 40-year-old apartment. Now they barely support themselves with odd jobs. Meanwhile, I was promoted to lead a major project at work. The new house was too big for one, so I invited my parents to live with me. Cutting ties with that family was truly a blessing. I look forward to fulfilling life in my dream home with my parents.